And now it's my great pleasure to invite Taoiseach to deliver his address.
The convening of the Constitutional Convention is a significant and a historic event in the political and the democratic life of this country. The Convention is a new and very different means of examining constitutional reform, one which places people right at the very heart of the process, because the Constitution of our country belongs to the people and to no one else. It is central to our identity as a nation. It is central to how we govern. It is central to how we protect the rights and the freedoms of our citizens. With this convention, therefore, ordinary citizens will work side by side with elected representatives from north and south to examine matters of constitutional reform. It is work that cannot and should not be taken lightly. It is now 75 years since the people endorsed the Constitution, the groundwork for which was laid by Michael Collins in the 1922 Constitution Committee. Within a short period of its adoption in 1937, Europe and then the world were at war. During this turbulent period, Bunrath na hÉireann provided a very important foundation for what was still a fledgling state, a state which itself had only recently emerged from both a war of independence and a civil war. Overall, the Constitution has stood the test of time in setting out the basic architecture of our state and indicating some of the values and the principles by which we, the people of Ireland, wish to live. However, our country has changed a great deal since the 1930s. Europe has not only seen an unprecedented period of peace, but has itself established laws and institutions to ensure that the events of the 1930s and the 1940s are never repeated. As a society, our values and our mores have changed. Most would agree for the better, and our Constitution has changed with us too. Over 20 amendments have taken place since 1937. And interestingly, in the 35 years of its life, the first 35 years of its life, there were only 2 amendments. One brought about by the war in 1939, the second in 1941, an omnibus proposal amending a number of articles in the light of experience since its enactment. During the 1970s and the 1980s, there were 9 amendments. 2 related to our membership of the European Union, as we took our place at the very centre of European affairs. On New Year's Day, we will once again assume the presidency of the European Union, the 40th anniversary of our accession to the EU. The changes adopted in the 1970s and the 1980s reflected our new openness and our changing values as a society. The right to vote at Dáil elections was extended to certain non-Irish nationals. The voting age was reduced from 21 to 18. During that period, the people removed the special position of the Catholic Church. A change was also made to adoption and to the protection of the unborn. The pace of amendment increased further in the 1990s and into the new millennium. A significant number of amendments arose from our membership of the European Union, while others reflected further changes in social values, including the passing of a divorce referendum. While mercifully it had not been used for a long time previously, the death penalty was finally removed from our Constitution in 2002. An enormous milestone, as your chairman has said, was the referendum in 1998 on the Good Friday Agreement. The success of that referendum and of its counterpart in Northern Ireland transformed relationships on this island and indeed between Ireland and our nearest neighbour. By any standards, it marked a sea change in Irish history and in British history. That short history lesson, if you like, suggests that as the pace of Irish life increases, and values in society with it, there is a need more than ever to keep our Constitution under review, to keep it both relevant and inspiring. From the outset, in declaring our intention and desire to be a government of reform, we committed ourselves in our programme for government to a considerable programme of constitutional reform. In the first 20 months, we've held 4 referendums, 3 of those in fulfilling commitments within the programme for government. We also intend to hold referenda on the abolition of the Seanad and on the reform of our court system. But we wanted to institute a new and dynamic in relation to the consideration of the Constitution and constitutional change. So this Constitutional Convention is both an important and an exciting step in a process to better equip the Constitution to meet the challenges that we face today and that we face tomorrow. It represents an entirely new approach to examining constitutional reform, one never tried before in this country. As I said, the Constitution belongs to the people. It has a real and a direct impact on all our lives, so it's very appropriate that citizens themselves should play a part in the process of considering constitutional reform. So this Constitutional Convention is principally a people's convention. It will provide a means for citizens like you, who ordinarily might not be familiar with how policy or laws are made, to work alongside elected representatives and have a direct input into the process of considering constitutional reform. I want to warmly welcome, and personally welcome each of you for taking the decision to participate in this convention. You will be joined in your work by representatives from the Northern Ireland Assembly. I want to welcome and thank those members also. The Good Friday Agreement and the St Andrews Agreement are fundamental to the changed relationships on this island and between Ireland and Britain. It is absolutely right, therefore, and not just merely correct, that elected representatives from Northern Ireland should be part of the Convention, and that the Convention itself, in carrying out its work, should have due regard to the principles that are enshrined in those agreements. This Convention must be representative of Irish society generally and not particular viewpoints. The whole point of a People's Convention is to entrust ordinary citizens and democratically elected public representatives to weigh up the evidence, to exercise their judgment, and to use their wisdom and their life experience together to make and to arrive at reasoned and informed recommendations on the matters before them. I'm conscious, of course, that there are people outside the organisation and outside the Convention who will have valuable insights and information to offer, and they can no doubt be of great value in helping you to reach conclusions and in making your recommendations. I'm sure you'll wish to hear from a broad spectrum of opinion in considering the matters before you. So the Convention also provides an opportunity for a much wider and more inclusive form of democracy. It has the potential not only to engage you, but to promote and stimulate a wider and a bigger conversation. And we in government would strongly encourage that wider conversation. We are equally anxious that there be active engagement from Irish people abroad, and to facilitate as wide an engagement as possible, the new website has been set up and is active from today. And it's also planned to put on this website your working papers and the valued submissions that you will receive. Your meetings will be webcast live, which in itself is a new and a valuable arrangement. So over next year, you will consider a broad range of questions in a significant programme of work. You will look at critical political questions, like the reform of our Dáil electoral system, as well as important social issues, like the role of women in society and whether there should be a provision in our Constitution for same-sex marriage. Once you have completed this body of work, your terms of reference allow you to consider other matters that you deem appropriate. It's important that when you've completed your work, it is responded to in a timely and a considered fashion. Because too often in the past, constitutional review groups laboured to produce excellent reports, which were then left unread or on an anonymous shelf. This will not happen with your work. We in government have made a formal commitment to giving a public response through the Houses of the Oireachtas to each recommendation within a 4-month period, and that commitment will be honoured. Indeed, if government accept a recommendation that the Constitution should be amended, our response will include a time frame for the holding of any such referendum. Before making our response, we have a duty, of course, to fulfil the obligation that every government has in considering proposals for constitutional reform, to consider the proposal itself carefully, secondly, to ensure that as far as possible its purpose can be achieved without leading to unintended consequences. Your chairperson will play a key role in ensuring the success of the convention, and the government were conscious from the start of the requirement to have a truly outstanding person with exceptional ability to chair the Constitutional Convention. Tom Arnold is such a person. His personal commitment and qualities make him an ideal choice to take the chair of the convention. Tom has significant experience of public administration as well as a truly outstanding international record, and I commend you for the decisions you've made, Tom. He will bring to his task a wealth of management experience and as chief executive of an organisation that spans the globe. But he will also bring to it the essential qualities of compassion, of empathy, of kindness, and of judgment. Indeed, I would like to pay tribute to Tom and to the Secretariat team, Arthur Leary here, and his fellow workers for the enormous amount of work they've already put in to preparing for this day. So government is very pleased that he accepted our invitation to chair the convention, and I'm sure you'll join with me in wishing him the very best. Now, these last few years have been challenging for our country, but from these challenges spring opportunities. The putting in place of this new and exciting process for considering constitutional reform, one which directly involves our citizens working side by side with their elected representatives in developing reform proposals, represents a truly significant opportunity. Active citizens are essential for democracy and for the democratic process. Ultimately, that democracy depends on the willingness of individuals to perform the duties of citizenship. As the Constitution itself says, fidelity to the nation and loyalty to the state are fundamental political duties of all citizens. You who are participating in this convention have shown a willingness to go well beyond the fulfilment of that important constitutional obligation by giving a significant proportion of your free time over the next 12 months to the work of the Constitution. So on behalf of the government, therefore, I thank you once again for agreeing to actively participate in our Constitutional Convention, and I wish you and all associated with your work the very best in the responsibilities that you have undertaken to commit to. Thank you indeed.